Ah, yes, the orgasm. One of my very favorite topics of conversation. How do we have more of them? How do we let them not just be something confined to our genitals, but something that spreads throughout our body and makes us quiver and quake and just overrun with ecstasy? This is the exploration of being a multi-orgasmic man. To be able to have 5, 10, 15, 20 orgasms in a sitting, in a day. Hundreds if you want it. And that sex stops not because you came and you need a nap or you just lose interest, but sex stops because you're feeling fulfilled and that was all you wanted. You're ready to go. Practices to become a multi-orgasmic man is the topic of today's video, and I'm excited to share more. So hey guys, I'm Kaelan. I'm excited to share these thoughts with you today. These are things that I personally do practice. I started exploring this while I was in college. For those of you who know a little bit about my backstory, I started getting into yoga and Tantric yoga while I was in university, lived in an ashram for several years, and this is something very near and dear to my heart. I also just want to point out, today's video is staying very PG. If you would like to see a much more explicit version, an uncensored version, a more eroticized version, you can click on my link tree in the video description to be led to places where you can see that. All right. So many of you are probably familiar, if you've been exploring this topic already, with Mantak Chia. He is kind of the go-to resource for male multiple orgasms. He is a Taoist teacher specializing in sexual health and well-being for men and women. I first encountered his book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man, while I was in college, and I actually reread it in preparation for this video. And I have to say it is a damn good book. Highly recommend it if this is something you want to go deeper in. I also want to give him a shout out for saying thank you for being inclusive of all sexualities. Whether you're straight, gay, bi, whatever, he creates a space that feels very affirming and welcoming in his writing, and so that's really lovely to see. And kudos to this dude. He is in his 9th decade of life now, and he is still vibrant and kicking, and I hope to be that when I'm in my 80s. So his view on becoming multi-orgasmic is very similar to mine, and it starts out with awareness. For many guys, the ejaculation and the orgasm are synonymous. They're the same thing. And for many guys, the goal is to just get off as quickly as you can. But this is a little bit like eating one apple when you could be eating a giant apple pie. Like, you are missing all of the good stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love an apple, but you can also have so much more than just that. He recommends men take about 15 to 20 minutes for self-pleasuring, to become aware of their body, become aware of their ejaculatory response, and to start to slowly approach that point of no return where you're going to tip over into ejaculation and realize you can actually, if you get really close, this is called edging, if you get really close, you can start to flirt with that orgasmic response. You can maybe start to feel your prostate flutter, contractions through your pelvis without actually coming. He also encourages you to become aware of how you're breathing. If you're breathing shallowly, panting like a dog, you're going to stimulate a fight or flight response in your body, and you're going to be more likely to tip in ejaculation. Rather than if you breathe slow and deep, you engage the parasympathetic nervous system, and it creates a greater sense of ease and flow, and it allows you to feel that differentiation between orgasm and ejaculation and start to notice the difference. He also brings up the important idea of becoming more fluid in your body. A lot of guys are really rigid and held when they're exploring sex. Start to move. Start to let your spine become supple. If you want to become multi-orgasmic, I'm a big fan of starting to practice pelvic floor rocking, starting to undulate the spine. That really gets everything flowing and moving. And again, this idea that we want to take the energy out of the penis, out of the sexual organs, and start to flow it through the body. Bring it up the spine, move it through you, so that it becomes a full body orgasm, not just a localized one. Now from here, he brings up the idea of an energetic circuit. And if you've meditated with me before, you've probably heard me talk about this, because it's something that many meditation traditions discuss, which is we have a flow of energy through our body, down the front and up the back, from the third eye, from the face down into the sexual organs, and then from there to the root of our pelvis, up the spine to the crown of our head, and then back down into our third eye. And so as we become more facile at feeling that and feeling that sense of flow and breathing and imagining it, we can pull that energy out of our hips into the crown of our head, bring it back down the front, let it store somewhere safe like in the belly. This also transmutes the energy from just being pure erotic energy to being more compassionate, soulful, just transcendent energy. To do this, Mantak Chia recommends that you strengthen the pelvic floor through Kegel exercises, squeezing and releasing the pelvis, and then using that as a type of pump to force the erotic energy to move through the circuit. Now, the one bit of caution I'll give for people wanting to explore specifically his work is some people tend to get overzealous and overdevelop their pelvic floor muscles, which can cause some pain and possibly some health issues. So as with everything in life, just taking your time, being gentle, letting things develop as you'd like. And also, as I talked about on my last video about semen retention, some people who practice his technique can get a little overzealous and insist they should never come. And he doesn't say that. He just says it's about becoming mindful about when you choose to ejaculate versus when you don't. The Taoists are very much rooted in this idea that our life force is in our semen, in our sexual fluids, and so releasing that releases some of our vitality. Now, do I fully agree with that? Kind of. Maybe not. Maybe so. It depends. But I do agree with the idea of making a conscious choice rather than letting it just be something that happens to you. Another school of thought on becoming multi-orgasmic comes from Tibet, from the Vajrayana Buddhist tradition, the Tantric Buddhist tradition. They have been exploring these techniques also for centuries, if not millennia. Dr. Nida is a wonderful modern voice teaching and exploring these techniques. And a lot of those techniques start off with visualization. Again, we return to this idea of transmuting energy. So for him, he says, envision that you've got a ball of red energy in your sexual organs, and you've got a ball of white energy up at the crown of your head. As you inhale, you pull the white energy down into the red energy. As you exhale, pull drops of the red energy up into the white energy, letting them mingle. And by doing that, you create this magnetic force, this energetic circuit that causes sexual energy to be stimulated. By doing this, he says, you can have dozens, even hundreds of orgasms that they'll just start to spontaneously erupt. And I have done this practice. I can vouch that I have had that experience. I've even taught that practice here on YouTube in greater depth. And it is pretty crazy to see how you can just have orgasm after orgasm after orgasm. And that is with no touch. That is just purely through the breath and visualization. And yes, you can get an erection. Yes, you could even ejaculate just through that visualization. That is not uncommon. But from there, then you move into touch work. Then you move into energetic work with a partner, or visualizing a form of the divine coming to manifest with you or within you, and using your sexual energy, even your sexual fluids, as a form of offering. Like you might offer some flowers or some incense. You also offer your sexual fluids as a divine gift for having had so much bliss. And I think this is a great time to point out that many meditative traditions discuss how the state of orgasm and the state of enlightenment are not too dissimilar. Both are transcendent, both are inherently blissful, both are filled with joy and love for the people around you. That if you can cultivate the state of orgasm within, it is also a form of enlightenment, according to some traditions. There's one other mode of creating multi-orgasmic experiences in the body that I think is worth mentioning. There's very little you can find about it now online, but it's something that I dove into quite a bit when I was younger, and it's the idea of using sound to stimulate an orgasmic experience. We've heard now from two separate traditions around the idea of moving energy out of the lower body up to the top of your head and then bringing it back down, whether through the breath or through visualization. This other technique uses sound. So you create sound while you're in a sexual experience, while you're making love or masturbating. You make the noise low in your body, bring it up to your upper register, and then slam it back down. Yeah, I know it sounds a little funny, but for me anyway, it actually works. So you make that noise, soft or loud as a lion's roar if you want, and then take a couple deep breaths in silence, feeling it absorb. For me, it's been some amazing tingles and flowing sense of ecstasy that's arisen from doing that, and I think it's just another wonderful tool in your arsenal. Now, all of this might sound crazy, but I can say for myself, I have dedicated time and energy towards this. I have learned to have as many orgasms as I'd want, whenever I'd like, to last as long as I'd like, when I invoke these type of sexual practices, and it's been an absolutely wonderful addition to my life and my well-being. And it requires relatively little time. Like, this is something that you could work on for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months, and already have a very profound experience of it and see results pretty quickly. But at the end of the day, the thing I always come back to on this channel is, what kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to live the kind of life where you're just doing what everybody else does? That you're just living unconsciously, that you're just doing whatever was programmed in you? Or do you want to say, fuck that. I want to live for more. I want to have a more joyful life, a more fulfilled life, a more robust life. And I love the feeling of orgasm. Why don't I cultivate a way to have that many, many times a day, as often as I'd like? All of these different schools of thought agree it will make you happier, healthier, bring more vitality and joy. Sex, we all know, can be a tremendously damaging experience when the energy is not used well, consciously, with compassion, with consent. But we aren't always as aware that sex can also be equally as healing, that can do a tremendous amount to make us better, more integrated, more healthful individuals. So taking this time to really connect with yourself, men, love yourself, and cultivate your sexual energy can be a tremendous gift. And as always, back to this idea of gratitude. So whether you're having 1 orgasm or 50, when it happens, just say thank you, universe. Thank you, body. Thank you, creation. I'm so grateful to be having this experience. And if you do that, I think the world will become a better place. After all, few people want to create violence or pain when they're in the throes of coming. If you enjoyed this, please drop a comment, hit the like. My name's Kaelan. I work with people around the world to help them come home to themselves and have a better and more joyful life. You can go to ecstaticself.com to learn more about my one-on-one work or to join me on an in-person retreat. Special shout out and thank you to my patrons. You make these videos possible. And I want to thank you all for taking a few minutes with me today. Blessings and love to you.